Alright, welcome back to Shooting It Straight. Today's video stems from an inquisitive new Glock owner who wanted to know a little more about his new pistol. Specifically, when and where it was manufactured and what some of those odd markings on the gun meant. Now, as I was trying to explain some of these things to him, and I'm certainly no expert in this, but I began to wonder, how many other Glock owners have these same or similar type questions? So I thought about it and I thought, well, I'll throw together a short video, and this time I really mean short, to address some questions, all right? And now again, keep in mind that I may not be 100% accurate on everything, simply because Glock has either changed or stopped using some of those markings, over the course of 35 years, even as recently as a few years ago. And it's been a few years since I was taught any of this stuff. So some of this may be a little out of date. I don't know. You'll have to let me know. So, as you can imagine, then, it can be difficult and confusing sometimes when trying to interpret some of these things. So I can only tell you what I know from my own studies, my own research, and my own training. And even then, some of those things may no longer be accurate. They may have changed. All right. The first thing most Glock enthusiasts want to know is whether their Glock was manufactured in Austria or in America. Because, it should be no secret by now that many Glocks have been manufactured in the Smyrna, Georgia facility since about, 2014, somewhere in that area. Whereas previously, since 1986, that same facility down in Smyrna had been used only for assembly purposes. That's all they did down there was assemble the components after they were made and shipped from Glock in Austria. But in around 2014, they actually started manufacturing some components. Now, those components that are manufactured in Smyrna are the bare frame itself, the slide, and the barrel. That's all that's manufactured here in the United States. And only about 30% of all Glocks are made there, while the rest are imported from Austria. All the other components, everything else outside of the bare frame, the slide, the bare slide, and the barrel, are produced in-house by Glock in Austria and are shipped to the U.S., where they are then fully assembled at that Smyrna facility and distributed. But now, it's fairly easy to determine if your Glock was made in Austria or made in America. It will literally say it on the barrel, on the frame, and on the slide. Now, I'll show you my frame. You may not be able to see it. So what I'm going to do is also, I'll try to put up some pics so that these things are a little easier to see, because you probably won't be able to see it here, and I have no way of knowing whether or not it's going to be in focus because I can't see anyway. But it plainly says right there, made in Austria. Now, it has Glock Incorporated, Smyrna, Georgia below that, but that's where it was assembled, and that's where it's distributed from. So it says it right here on my frame. Otherwise it would say made in USA, not made in Austria. All right, now, if you'll look on the opposite side, but on the slide, you'll see Austria right there. If it was made in the U.S., it would just have USA instead of Austria. All right. Now, for the barrel, really the only thing you need to look at is the top of the barrel. And again, I'll throw up a pic so you can see it better, but you'll see right after the Glock symbol is the letters AT. AT means Austria. If it was made in the US, it would show US next to that, and it'll have a outline of the state of Georgia right next to that, showing that it was made in the Smyrna, Georgia facility. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward and simple. That's about all you need to look for. Now, there's also a lot of people have asked me about that funny little pentagon outline on the barrel chamber right up here. You know, it has on mine it has the 40 caliber, you know, .40, and then it's got that what people call or refer to as a pentagon outline. I'll try to get a pic of that. Most people mistakenly believe it to be a proof mark, but it's not. It's simply a symbol indicating that the barrel has polygonal rifling. That's what that means. And of course, all Glocks, all Glock factory barrels have polygonal rifling. And yes, even the Gen 5s have it too. Now sometimes you'll see a small dot right in the center of that pentagon. That indicates that the barrel holds a grade 6 rating of steel. A pentagon without the dot in the center of it is a grade 5 or a slightly lesser rating of steel. Now this has no bearing in considering whether or not it's rated for plus P or plus P plus or anything like that, which Glocks can easily handle. It's simply to determine the level of proof testing that it is rated for. Now, I don't know if you'll see it or not. I tried to take some pictures, but mine does have that dot in the center of it. So it is a grade 6 level of steel, which is the highest available. This pentagon symbol has been replaced by the use of an oval with the number 3 and the letter D, 3D, stamped in the middle of that oval. All right, instead of the pentagon. Now that's there to denote Glock's cooperation in the 3D ballistics database for research that was created by the NIST, or the National Institute of Standards and Technology, as a means to positively identify bullets fired from specific barrels, such as the Glock marksman barrel. Starting to get the picture now? Now from 1982 to 1991, I think, Glock 17 pistols were assembled and test fired or proofed in Austria. Those barrels have an eagle roll mark on them, which is Austria's coat of arms, and you might see a number 2 in the center of it, which means that it was proofed at the firing house in Vienna, Austria. You may also see this eagle roll mark on the frames of the same period too. Now, as far as proof marks go, or proof testing is concerned, normally Glock barrels are tested using a couple of cartridges that have been overloaded. Well, they actually test fire 5 cartridges, but 2 of them are overloaded with 30% higher pressure than what the barrel is normally rated for that commercial cartridge under these CIP standards. Europe uses a CIP standard over there, which is different countries may use different means of this same type of testing. For example, like I said, most of Europe uses CIP standard, whereas the United States uses the SAMI standards, SAAMI, SAMI standards, for proof testing, for the maximum acceptable pressure of cartridges. But compliance is on a voluntary basis concerning ammo. But it's relatively the same thing. If it passes the CIP, it'll pass the SAMI here. It's testing the strength of that barrel to ensure that the chamber is not going to blow apart if you accidentally get an overloaded cartridge in there. They use two of those cartridges, two of those overpressured cartridges to test that, and then they fire 3 normal commercially loaded cartridges as well. Austrian pistols that meet the 30% higher pressures might bear a roll mark of NPV, which is the Vienna Proof House marking. That means smokeless powder for parabellum pistols. But we can think of it as nitro powder proof, which is basically what it means anyway. Some of the earlier ones will also have 3 letters following that NPV mark. Those are date stamps to indicate when the barrel was test fired. Not necessarily when the pistol was built, but when the barrel was test fired. Now, Glock eventually stopped using those 3-letter codes. There is a way to cipher that code, but it's lengthy, and I don't really want to go into it in this video because I want to keep it short here and just give you some basics. Now, there are no proof marks on the barrels with the pistols that are assembled in the U.S., even if the barrel itself was manufactured in Austria. Those guns, like mine, which is manufactured in Austria but assembled here in Smyrna, Georgia, these guns are proofed or test fired at the Smyrna facility after assembly, and as such do not require proof marks. Instead, you are presented with the 2 spent cases of the overloaded proof testing cartridges to serve as evidence of that testing. You always wonder, have you ever wondered why you always get those 2 empty brass cases in the case with your gun? Well, that's it. That's your proof testing cartridges or cases. And it's got all sorts of information on there, and it has the date, has a date that it was collected, which this one was in 2014. All right. Now, there's no proof marks on the barrel with the pistols that are assembled, so that's what you get is the 2 cases. Accuracy tests for the sight alignments are done at a distance of 25 meters. That's the accuracy testing on that. And like I said, the date on here will give you some sort of idea of when your Glock was born. All right. Otherwise, to find out the exact date of manufacture, you'll need to go online with the manufacturer or some other Glock source, such as the Glock Shooting Sports Foundation, to find out that kind of information. Now, another question that always seems to come is this: are the Glocks that are made in America as good as the ones that are made in Austria? Well, the answer is yes, because they are truly the same thing, okay? And let me explain that. Glock makes every single gun component totally in-house. They don't outsource anything. They manufacture the machines that they use. They manufacture the polymer used. They manufacture all the springs and pins that they use, and they manufacture the steel that they use. Glock has two facilities in Austria. All right. One that deals with all the steel components and one that deals with all of the polymer components. Most other U.S. firearms manufacturers outsource many of their components or send some components off to a subcontractor for the finish application and or heat treatment, things like that. Glock does all of this completely in-house only. Now, although only the barrels, frames, and slides are made at the Smyrna facility, they are made on the machines made by Glock in Austria, which were imported to Smyrna, Georgia. The polymer and the steel itself is made in Austria and shipped to Smyrna. The CAD programs, the machine setup, even the concrete floors that the American workers are standing on are all set up by Glock engineers that were flown in from Austria. So it's a virtual carbon copy. There's no difference in anything except on the markings of the pistol itself. Glock USA of Smyrna keeps 1 year worth of production materials, steel, polymer, manufacturing materials, and so forth, on hand at all times to ensure consistent production without interruption. And by the way, this, it may interest you to know that the Glock 42 is made only at the Smyrna facility and nowhere else. That's the only place the 42 is made. Now, that was intended to avert import restrictions otherwise placed on it. Okay? Now, this video is by no means a complete representation of all markings and codes on a Glock, but instead just some of the highlights. I hope you found this video interesting and somewhat informative. I have another short video coming out soon relating to Glocks and codes, so watch for that one. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one. I'm Antonius, and this is Shooting It Straight, and until next time, arrivederci, amici.